This is Janeen,
And this is Laura.
and we just finished a fantastic live stream talking all about the awesome genre of dystopian and, of course, this amazing book, which is.
Sunrise on the Reaping.
So, it was great. It was awesome. What are some things we dug into this one, Laura?
We talked all about what dystopian is. We talked about a couple different books specifically, what it would be like to write dystopian. We talked about government a lot and its element within dystopian. And we talked a lot about the Hunger Games.
Yes. And so if you're here for all of that, we talked about it. We gushed about it. We talked about Sunrise and the Reaping. You've already been warned. There's spoilers for everything here. So if you haven't read them yet, go read them and then come back to this. We shared some of our special tips, especially listen through to the end because we have some great stuff about marketing dystopian because we both have. I have a dystopian book out, a couple of them actually, and then Laura has one coming out. It is not the easiest genre to market all the time. And we're going to tell you one reason why and also what you can do to make it easier. And also for a bit, my internet doesn't work. And so Laura just takes over and runs the show. And I'm actually really excited to listen back and hear that myself. But she just does a great job while I'm getting my internet back on the live stream. So that you do not want to miss this one. And we are so excited that you are here. So, hey, everyone. There will be a time when I get my live stream started on time. Apparently, that's not this day, but this is only my second one here. So we still have time, people. We still have time
We've got
to
time.
get this right.
We're good.
Yes. Hey there. Glad to be here. See you here, Marilyn. Awesome. And yay.
Silver
Awesome.
Storm, I know who that is.
Fantastic. Thank you guys so much for hanging around and waiting as we got all the things sorted out for this because tech. It'll get easier every time, or maybe it won't. Either way, it is okay. So again, Janeen Ippolito here, and there is the amazing Laura.
Yay. Hello, how are you?
Super glad that you guys could make it here for tonight. We're just gonna start this off with a little bit of a chat. And so the first question is, we could do serious or we could do like not serious. So, all right, we're here partly for Hunger Games stuff. So your favorite Hunger Games character? I'm not going to do least because I'm pretty sure everyone's going to have the same person, but.
Yeah, right.
So out there, favorite Hunger Games character, let us know in the chat box what your favorite one is. Say hi. And what's yours favorite, Laura?
Okay. It is so hard for me to separate myself from Sunrise on the Reaping. I'm not going to lie. Okay. So, I just so badly want to say Ampert, but
you can if you want to. You're allowed to.
Oh, my heart. I'm really trying to take myself back. I mean,
he counts. We're just going to have to say
it does
Hunger
count.
Games verse now. Hunger Games verse versus
Hunger Games verse. And I mean, honestly, from the beginning, Rue. I mean, from the very first book.
You just like the cute ones that don't make it, don't you? My goodness.
Oh, I love the adorable ones that don't stay around. So, what about you?
Oh, man. Okay, so I'm just going to do like one per book. We're going to do that. We're going to do that.
Okay.
I can do this. I really do like Katniss as a character. I find she just was an interesting one. When I first read those books, it was really cool to see more of an intellectual, like not intellectual as in she's not always figuring things out. So that's not her gift, but like a very pragmatic character there. That was always really fun for me to see. And so I really did enjoy that. And I actually always loved the interaction between Haymitch and Effie. Like I loved that back and forth. That was always really fun.
Yeah.
And then I actually really love Haymitch in this book. I don't know why, but when you get these characters that just, they have these soft hearts, like he's the opposite of Katniss. The ones who have soft hearts, you just beat them up.
I know.
They just beat up so nicely. And just bad things are going to happen to this guy. You know it.
I know. But that has to happen or he isn't who he is. They have to happen.
It was like watching a train wreck to a really decent person. It was terrible.
I know.
And yet you keep reading. And then
you keep reading.
I do like Lucy Gray from Ballad of
Yeah.
Songbirds and Snakes. I
Yeah.
liked her because she was so different than Katniss, you
She
know,
was so
because she
different.
just
Yeah.
total performer, all of that. I like that in my canon, you know, she does get away, she is away, and I like that this little
Hmm.
tiny thing got away from Snow because no one likes
Yeah.
Snow. So, you know, it's like
Oh.
um
Yeah.
so that was fun. Oh, and Silverstorm, their ex-president Snow.
Yeah.
So yeah,
And
anyone else?
Haymitch.
And
Also
Haymitch.
Haymitch. Haymitch is the
This book
best.
makes you a fan of Haymitch if you weren't a fan of Haymitch, pretty much.
I
It
mean,
does
but
that.
who wasn't a fan of Haymitch to begin with, though?
I don't
You
know. I
know,
feel like
like,
you should be.
yes.
You got a fan club there in the chat box.
I do. I do. I made sure all my girls knew. I was like, you gotta join me.
Well, welcome here. And again, anyone who is joining us here, go ahead and shout out your favorite Hunger Games or Hunger Games verse character in the chat box.
Yeah.
But we're also going to talk about dystopian books in general. So
Yes.
this is a two-part question. So you can talk about your Hunger Games characters, or what is the first dystopian book you ever read?
Oh.
Probably something that you made to read in school because that happens with dystopian.
Oh, you know what though? You're right. I'm okay. So let me back up. Honestly, when I was thinking about tonight,
Mm-hmm.
it occurred to me, I don't know why this has never really occurred to me, that there's really kind of like categories of dystopian. Like we
Oh,
have
yeah.
like the old dystopian,
Mm-hmm.
then we
We are
sort of
going to
have
talk
like
about that.
the
Go ahead.
middle dystopian, like which was the 2000s, and now we've
Mm-hmm.
got the more like today where it's
Mm-hmm.
coming back around again.
Yeah.
So you're right. When you asked that, of course, my mind went straight to the 2000s, like, oh, what was it? But no, we're going back before that
Let's
because,
go
of
back. Yep. Let's go
course,
back to old
I
school.
mean, well, Lord of the Flies.
There
I
we
mean,
go.
hello. You know, let me think. What else? Well, I mean, Animal Farm,
Mm-hmm.
right? We're
Mm-hmm.
talking The Giver. I don't
Oh,
know
yeah.
which one I read first.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it was probably Animal Farm. I think that was probably the first one because that would have been early high school. So I think that probably would have been the first one. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, as someone who taught different things in schools, like Animal Farm is like a great entry level to dystopian and making people
Hmm.
think about things because it's so short. And
Yeah.
so it's like, this is the first great book to traumatize your students and
Accurate.
accurate and have them like have to think about different things and like, here's a fun book. Oh, no, it's not.
Oh, it's
And why are the
not.
pigs so mean?
I
And
know.
then like we go from there.
Why are they so mean? It's
And then we
true.
go from there right to The Giver, which just crushes
The Giver.
people's
Okay.
souls. And
Oh,
it's just
yeah. I know. Ooh.
okay. So the chat box here, we also have Maze Runner. Oh yeah,
So good.
love such a good one.
So good.
Divergent.
Divergent.
Divergent. I love the first one. Like the second one. Thought it fell apart in the third.
I
Sorry,
know.
Veronica
I know.
Roth.
I know. I
Oh.
know. I was talking to my daughter about that one the other day, and I told
Mhm.
her, I was like, unfortunately, with the third book, there's no in between. Either you love it or you hate it. Like it's kind of the way
Mhm.
that it lines up. And
Mhm.
because what you said, I think she did kind of she diverged,
Mhm.
pun intended, a little bit from the norm of what like of storytelling, right?
Well.
She
Mhm.
went in a direction that most authors don't go, and I think it made readers mad.
Well, and I would hypothesize because Veronica Roth in the Divergent series, I think that was like one of her first series.
Yeah.
When you're a baby author and it's your first series and it blows up like that, and you're still figuring out how to do a trilogy, oh my goodness. I wouldn't
Yeah.
want to be her having that pressure. And I think she just tackled such a big picture concept in Divergent, and then she
She did.
just couldn't quite. For the people who are in dystopian, for the intellect, because there's different reasons you read dystopian. For those people who are in there to see how badly the government really is, she kind of let you down a bit because I felt like maybe even she was trying to figure it out as she went. And the spotlight's on her. She's got movie options. Like everything
Yeah.
is huge. And unlike Suzanne Collins, who had years and years in the movie
And
world before
successful
her book,
books out.
yeah,
Yeah.
before her this
Hmm.
blew up.
Yeah.
Veronica Roth just kind of it exploded at the beginning.
Yeah.
And that's really hard on a new author.
Yeah.
Let's see. Okay, Margaret. Yay, glad to have you here. The Giver was my favorite. The Giver is just a classic
I
in terms of
mean,
how it's written. Lois Lowry is a phenomenal writer.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and
I would
just
agree.
that ending. And of course, the ambiguous ending is a thing for some dystopian books too, where you're like, no, I think he survived. I think he died. What happened? We don't know.
But I sort of like that though. I mean,
I
exactly
love
what you
it.
said about
Yeah.
Lucy Gray earlier. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I love, I mean, there's a balance, there's a fine
Mm-hmm.
line. You, as an author, you cannot keep it too open because that's just annoying. It's a cop out. There's a whole lot.
Mm-hmm.
But ultimately, if you can get that balance and you can just kind of leave that question mark, I
Oh, yeah.
love that readers get to sort of continue to be like their own creative selves and
Oh, yeah.
like create their own ending or imagine what could happen or may have happened. And yeah, so that is actually something I believe is unique to dystopian. I mean, it
Mm-hmm.
can happen sometimes in other genres, but definitely dystopian. You're right. Yeah.
And I think it's that philosophical nature of
Hmm.
dystopian books. Like there's such an interesting combination of philosophy, as we're going to talk about later, for dystopian books, for them to really be dystopian and not just have a veneer. I was doing some more research today on it because I've studied a lot, but I want to check out some of the latest stuff. And there's some that kind of have a dystopian veneer, but you're like, you're not really dystopian though. You're like, you don't really have any meat on this. But the ones that
Yeah.
are really meaty, like even the Red Rising series or stuff, they make you think. They
Hmm.
have a message because that's part of dystopian. Like you
Hmm.
have a message in there. And so it just, yeah, it makes it really interesting to kind of work with that and everything. And it lets you have those interesting philosophical endings where we don't know because part of the fun is chewing at it, which is why I'm so excited we're here to chew on this book. And I'm so excited all you guys are here with us. And I think it's time to get this started. So let's get
Okay.
this started officially.
All right.
Ta-da!
Yay.
So, welcome here to the Author Culture Podcast. This is our second live stream where we're doing a deep dive into a particular sci-fi or fantasy genre. Of course, dystopian can also like tag onto other things, but it's a lot of it is in sci-fi or fantasy. If we're just going to adopt it and just move it into
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
genre.
Yeah.
And of course, here we are all about helping science fiction and fantasy authors create sustainable success in a way that makes sense for you in a chaotic publishing world. And I'm not going to get into this today with this live stream, but if you listen to my other ones, the publishing world is always chaotic and it's just getting more so all the
Yes,
time,
it is.
all the time.
All the time.
So we just need places where you're like gonna sit down and go, okay, this place is crazy and it's nuts, but we're just gonna do it anyway because books are awesome and science fiction and fantasy is fantastic. So
Yes, I
super
agree.
glad you're here. And of course, I am here with we got another fan here. I am here with the fantastic Laura L. Zimmerman, who
Yay!
does all the cool things here and has written dystopian books. And actually,
Yes.
one of the
Yep.
reasons she showed up here is that when I was saying that, hey, I have this book, and she said, tell me when you're done with it so we can talk about it. And then when I realized I want to do a live stream, I'm like, wait, Laura likes to talk. Laura's okay with being on camera. Hey, Laura. And that was like a week ago. And she's like, sure, I'll show up and do this.
I like to talk. Yep, that's me.
And I know you have this book coming out in the future that
I
is
do.
going to have Hunger Games vibes in it. You're a fan of
Got some
that.
vibes. Yep.
I got some vibes there and everything. And we're going to talk about why having those vibes is important with dystopian books, especially if you actually want to sell them and make money on them.
Hmm.
Pure dystopian, like pure dystopian with no secondary genres, is a bit hard to swallow.
It is.
And so
It is.
those secondary genres make your life so much easier. In this case, what's your secondary genre for this wonderful book that you have coming out?
For the book that's coming out
Yeah.
well, it's a Pride and Prejudice retelling.
Yes.
So there you go.
There we go.
So yeah, the idea is to draw in as much of that fan base as possible. And honestly, I, f- I don't want to say, I don't want to make too many assumptions, but I feel like Pride and Prejudice might be a little bit unique that like I feel like the fan base for it is very open to all different kinds of retellings within different genres because I don't know that I've met a Pride and Prejudice fan yet that has kind of like scoffed when I've suggested, "Oh, did you read this one? Did you read that one?" So, yeah. It's it's there.
Well, I mean, again, the waters have already been tested, guys. We already had Pride and Prejudice and zombies, and not only did the book blow up huge,
Yeah.
but then we got a movie.
Yeah. Oh,
which is like one of my husband's, actually, I think it is his favorite Pride and Prejudice movie. It's the only one. Like, that was when he
it's
said,
good.
we have to see this in theaters. I'm like, you're going to like willingly see Pride and Prejudice? He's like, and zombies.
And
He's like, that
zombies.
just like was the missing piece of this whole thing.
It was. And it's so strange that it completed it. It is so strange, but it
But it
works
did it.
so well. It works so well. Yeah, I would agree.
And so I think just bringing those Hunger Games vibes to Pride and Prejudice makes sense because, I mean, for some reason, I'm as someone who I count myself as a Jane Austen fan as well. We're very open. We really are really
Yeah,
open
I
to
think
like
that's what it is.
mashups.
Yeah, I love the mashups. They're awesome.
All right, so we are going to be talking in this live stream about how to write dystopian stories, what makes this book kind of such a big deal with it, and how the different things that you use for dystopian books, how this book works with that, and also how to market your dystopian books and what readers are looking for, because it is kind of a weird little bugaboo genre.
It is.
I have worked with a number of authors on dystopian books, as also, and I've done my own. This was sort of my accidental dystopian book. And it kind of came out, and everyone's like, that's really dystopian. I'm like, oh, whoopsie. What happened?
Sorry.
So we'll talk about that and why it can be a challenge and why like it's great that stuff like this does well. And of course, like the Red Rising series and other things, we've had some really great dystopian things show up. I would even say actually the Lunar Chronicles have some dystopian elements in them and stuff like that. Yes. And there's a reason why those books blow up. And so if you're an author who is like, why did these ones work? What makes them like blow up besides the fact that it's a little bit of like divine providence that you really can't tell. You can't really, but beyond
True.
that, there are things that make people connect with that more than just telling a straight dystopian story. So we'll tackle that as well.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Also, Marilyn there, I'm going to out you for a second. So that one would be my mom, who's also one of my biggest fans.
There you go. I was wondering how she was going to borrow that book.
Oh no, this book, like it has, actually, I think my husband wants to try to read it. And then I have two other people who also want to read it. So we're going to see what happens with this one. But I have finished it. So it's going to make the rounds because, there's a couple copies at the local library, but they're getting snapped up like that. And
Oh, yeah.
as for me, again, I'm just going to say that cover. These are beautiful books.
Oh, they're so pretty. They're
That color theory right there. That's what I'm talking
yeah.
about here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
I would agree. I was going to
Let's see.
say,
Go ahead.
you were saying about how they're getting snatched up. I was talking to a friend about it last night, and I think she said she's somewhere in the 200s, like 240 or
Yeah.
something on the wait list at her library.
I'm
And
just going to say, just buy it. If you think you're going to like it, just buy it. Just buy it.
that's what I did. I pre-ordered. I will admit, I pre-ordered it because
I
I was
did
like,
too.
I'm not waiting. There's
want
no
it.
way I was going to wait.
And let's see. Margaret's asking, would 1984 be one of those pure dystopian stories? Yes, it would.
Yeah.
If you have a story that's really focused on the government itself and really hyper-focused on that that oppressive element that we're going to talk about, then you will absolutely have that more pure dystopian element. I would say actually The Giver is very strongly pure dystopian. Your really strong pure dystopians often get assigned in school.
Yeah. That's
Because
true.
high school English teachers, like I used to be, love to make students have to write papers and think when the students don't want to. And those pure
Yeah.
dystopian ones are kind of like designed to like jab at you. I might
gotta
also say
think.
V for Vendetta.
Yeah. V for Vendetta. Yep.
Fahrenheit 451.
Yep.
Aldous Huxley's Brave New World.
Yep.
Very focused on that particular dystopian element, not really a secondary element that you see as much. Let's see. Yay, Susie!
So I know. I see that. Dune? Is Dune or is it more sci-fi? I was going back and forth with that one when I was
I'm going to
thinking about
say Dune is more political intrigue. Dune is epic space opera.
it. It is, but also
It's
yeah.
epic, including
I don't know why. I don't know why I feel like
semicolons.
it always gets lumped in with it. But yeah, I would agree with you on that. Yeah, that's true.
Well, and I think that's the thing. Dystopian elements, like having corrupt governments who are functioning but not in good ways, can often be called dystopian because they
Yeah.
kind of are. And that brings us, like, to this whole definition of what makes a book dystopian, really. And I
Hmm.
tried to look to Merriam-Webster. Merriam-Webster was no help in this
Oh
case.
no.
Oh my goodness. It was like, what is a dystopian book? Of relating to or being characteristic of a dystopia.
Oh,
And then I
that
had
wasn't
people lead dehumanized, fearful lives, which isn't always the case, but is some often the case.
often. Yeah.
And then I went for like the word dystopia itself on the dictionary, an imagined world or society where people lead wretched, dehumanized, fearful lives. It's true, but I don't think it's capturing the genre. I think it's too much of a definition of just the term.
Yeah.
You know, that.
I always heard a simple way of looking at it would be it's the opposite of a utopia.
Hmm. Hmm.
So, I
Yeah.
mean, I don't know if that helps understand or not, but yeah. Hmm.
No, I think that's great. And
Hmm.
the trick with the dystopia is that often there's going to be a layer of people who say it is utopia.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
Because, I
yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
you know,
That makes
the
sense.
capital's
Yeah.
having a great time.
Yeah.
I don't know what your
Yeah.
problem
That
is.
makes perfect sense. Yeah, that does. That does make perfect sense.
Hmm.
Yeah, but I mean, it's
Um,
going to have elements of, I mean, it's it's going to have oppression of the people, which usually is fear-based. There's going to be a lot of control, which is usually by the government, um, authoritarian government.
mhm,
um, yeah. How else can we
mhm.
define it?
Yep, I would agree with all of those things. It definitely really has that strong sense of. I'm looking at a different page here that was actually for novels versus the dictionary, way more
Okay.
helpful. Um, there's definitely an idea of false utopia in dystopian,
Okay. Hmm.
and there's definitely an idea of totalitarian. There's definitely a very different reality that everyone's living in that
Mm-hmm.
is different than how we function or how we expect to function. Let's
Hmm.
see. Margaret has say maybe it's a story set after the downfall of the world as we know it. Yes, I
Yeah.
love that, and that's where you have to watch because there's post-apocalyptic, which is completely
Yes. Is
decentralized
different.
government,
Right.
and then there's dystopian where it's the downfall and then kind of a different kind of
Hmm.
government. And those two sometimes get like mixed up for each other. If you're thinking like post-apocalyptic, we're thinking The Walking Dead.
Right. Right.
But
Yeah.
if you're thinking of The Walking Dead and they go to one of those big compounds where everyone's made a new government, but and it's all great and there's no zombies here, except that oh no, there's zombies in a closet for some reason we don't know why, then that's dystopian.
Yeah. It is crossover. Yeah.
Yeah, those two definitely cross over with each other a lot. But I love that. Yeah, downfall of the world as we know it is definitely that. There's definitely a sense of concern, over that. It's targeting people's fears over what a government could do
Yeah.
or what a bad policy could do. One of my definitions that I say out to a lot of clients is a dystopian government or situation is trying to solve a problem in a
Hmm.
really bad way.
Yeah. Yeah. In a
And
really
then
bad way.
it's like, here's a problem. Let's see, how do we reconcile after a bloody war? Oh, this is not the way that
Yeah.
we
We'll just kill
reconcile after a
children.
bloody
That's
war.
what we'll
That's
do.
the let's solve this problem in the worst possible way we can possibly solve this problem.
Yeah.
And you're going to have layers of that. And so if you have a dystopian but you're not including that, then you don't really have a dystopian
Hmm.
because you need to have someone that's like, okay, this is a recognizable issue. So instead of doing anything more sane,
Hmm.
we're going to solve it like by oppressing this thing or by gutting this thing or that thing. That's a great way to solve it. And it's like, no,
No. No.
no, no.
No.
And so as we're walking through dystopians, let's see, there's another one here that often talks about for books. They have an idea of resistance that is very common in dystopian because otherwise you don't have a
Hmm.
book. If no one's resisting,
Yeah.
you just have a really sad society.
Which is why there has to be an oppressed people. Like
Hmm.
that just is part of it because they
Hmm.
have to resist. Yeah.
Yep,
Hmm.
because that's your story. Otherwise,
Yeah.
you don't really you don't have anywhere you're going with it
Yeah.
very much. And so, of course, with this one here, the oppression is everyone who lost the war.
Everyone but the capital.
Everyone but the capital with this one. And what I find really fascinating about this one, if you tie this one into Ballad of Songbird and Snakes,
Hmm.
this one has a lot of questions in it about why are we letting this one tiny thing boss us around? And yet they
Hmm.
keep doing that.
They keep doing it.
Yeah.
I know. So, um, when I was thinking earlier today
Hmm.
about tonight, and I was thinking about, I was actually going over my head, like, what is the basis of dystopian society? And of course, like the government role popped to my head. So I was like, okay, well, why? Why, how does the government like, control, and like what is their MO with that?
Hmm.
And so I kind of like did a quick search. I was like, what for most dystopian novels, like how does the government function? And one of the things that popped up was they said they usually use propaganda.
Hmm.
And I had like an aha moment, and I don't know if like everyone else just saw this and I missed it. But so thinking back to the original Hunger Games trilogy, yes, we're
Hmm.
back to the Hunger Games.
Yes.
Um, woo, in the third book, so we're at District 13, and of course, I don't want to spoil anything for
No,
people.
this
I'm
is a
sorry.
No,
Okay.
this is going to be a spoiler thing. Everyone
Sorry,
has been
guys.
warned. All of the promos, there are spoilers here.
Okay,
So
there's
the books
spoilers.
are out there. The Hunger
You,
Games have been out for like 10 years. You have
yes,
no
you should
excuse.
know. You should
If
know.
you haven't read it,
So,
come back to this after you've read it.
yes. So it's like we get to the end, okay, of Mockingjay. And Katniss is there with her bow, and she's ready to, take down Snow. And then it occurs to her, duh, President Coin is just going to take his spot. I should kill her, and it's all shocking. And it really was, honestly, it was genius. I remember when I read it, I was like, what? That's so cool. But listen, it occurred to me in that moment when I read, usually the government will use propaganda. And I was like, propos. I was like, literally, they were filming Katniss the whole time. Like it was almost glaring. So I guess that just shows that I hadn't really, like, I hadn't thought about the definition of the fact that it was dystopian. You know what I mean? I guess
Hmm.
maybe I would have figured that out. But yeah, like it just occurred to me, wow, yes, President Coin was always just President Snow. Like that's what it was.
Yeah. Yep.
Because she used the propos. So anyway,
Hmm.
I just thought that was interesting. It clicked in my head.
Well, and that's why I love these kind of books because they're so true to life in some ways. One of the reasons that I love dystopian books, and then after I did a lot more study of like cross cultural studies, my major is cross cultural studies and communication. So you're studying governments and people and how people are coming to the table different ways, and you're studying a lot about communication. And the more that you study governments rising and falling, this happens all
All the
the
time.
time.
Yeah.
Okay, our government's oppressive. Okay, we're going to overthrow them. Oh, wait, the new guys are just bad.
Just as bad.
Oh my goodness. And the realism of that, like I love it. And of course it's horrible to read at the same time, but I love it and I love how she went there with that and
Yeah.
how she's just showing that kind of poignancy there. So, hey, everyone who's out there in the chat box, what do you think about this? Do we miss anything with dystopian stuff? Is there something else that when you're picking up a dystopian book you're expecting? We're going to keep chatting here, but please let us know what you think about dystopian and like what things draw you to a dystopian book. Now, one other thing that I think about with a dystopian book that came up everywhere, and it's so true, but it's also something you don't really think about. Not all allegories are dystopian books, but all true
Mm,
dystopian books are allegories.
interesting. Okay. All
They
right.
have to have that message. Everything is symbolizing
Yeah.
something else. I mean, even you have President Snow and then President Coin. I mean, her last name
Right.
is Coin. It's like
Yeah.
money. She's
Yeah.
coming from money. She's buying
Yeah.
her way into things.
Mm-hmm.
Things are symbolic. I mean, the Hunger Games books are wrapped in symbolism.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something you're going to find, again, in all true dystopian books. If they have like a dystopian veneer, but you can tell they're kind of borrowing from something else, they're not going to have that as much.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like having like silver plate on a ring versus a silver ring. It's like you varnish it off and you really don't have much depth here. But because of the kind of story you're telling, they're very message based and they're very allegorical, which I
Mm-hmm.
think is how that one ended up dystopian because it's Cinderella, and fairy tales are often allegories. And then I decided, hey, what if the government is impressing them? Well, there we go.
There it is.
It just happened. We know.
And dystopian.
And I think sometimes we think about allegories and go, yeah, preachy, yeah, but it
Mm.
doesn't have to be.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're reading dystopian, again, y'all in the chat box, you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think we're expecting to have a deeper message of some kind. You're expecting
Mm-hmm.
something meaty because this
Yes.
is life or death. This is fighting. This is bloodshed. It
Yeah.
better mean something.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah. The joke that I just keep hearing all the time is, oh, Suzanne Collins has something to say about the government again. Here we go.
I
She's
mean,
got another book out. She's got another book out. So, yeah, she's got something to say.
and it's what you do in dystopian. I mean, it's what they
Okay.
are.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Sorry,
Yeah,
I'm just reading
explore
the stuff
current
that's popping
social
up.
issues. I love that, Margaret. Yeah. That's also definitely a thing. And I think you see those social issues fleshed out in the government and how people are trying to solve things or not solve things. I absolutely agree. It definitely connects with that. Although sometimes that can be tricky if you're writing a book and then it's going to be published 2 years later because the current social issues might be different
Yeah,
than when you wrote it.
that's true.
So I think some of the best ones really focus on timeless social issues, but they can also be current. And I think right now, Suzanne Collins, this book came
Yeah.
out in a golden moment.
Yeah.
You couldn't
Yeah.
have like considering the chaos of
Chaos.
everything. And again, this is an apolitical podcast, but
Yeah.
the chaos,
It's just in
the
general. Just
everything, the
in
what, the
general.
crap, the things, it's like exploding on socials. And it couldn't be like a more opportune time for her to make a lot of money on this
Yeah.
book.
Yeah. I think I read that she already, with this book, I think she already made more money with this one than like the original Hunger Games in the first X
I
number of
believe
years or
it.
whatever.
Everyone
I'm
is
like,
just prepped for it. And this
yeah, it's
guy,
true.
it's like, I don't know, Margaret Atwood nailed it like 30 years ago. She did, but even if you're talking about 30 years ago and what she's talking about with them, that's probably coming a bit out of the feminist movement as well. And that started in the 1970s. So while
Yeah.
we can say that those kind of social issues have come and gone, they did start back in like, having, protests and stuff in like the 1960s and the 70s and those kind of things. And then it just keeps coming up and you've had like, you had first wave feminism, second wave feminism, those kind of things, and discussing those kind of issues. So I think that because those philosophies keep coming up, that also keeps it perennial. Like you look at the philosophy behind that.
I was going to say, and I mean, you can also see that with the dystopian books too. They, you know what I mean? Like, there's the waves of, oh, it's super popular now, not so much. Then it comes back, and it's like a wave. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, but I agree, like, yeah, Margaret Atwood with like The Handmaid's Tale and such, and that becoming so popular now. And that's really hitting with certain, what these like social issues and discussions. But those discussions have been perennially happening. In that case, again, well, if you really want to argue back, you could talk back to even like the right to vote and that kind of stuff. But then in the 1960s and 70s, it really took different directions and everything. And she had things to say. And I think that's what it comes with dystopian is you really have to have, you can hit on social issues, but if you're going to write it, you also really have to have something to say. And I think if you try to do too much dystopian based on just a social issue, it's not going to be timeless. You have to kind of go
Makes sense.
deeper. You have to know some philosophy, even if you don't consider yourself a philosopher. You have to have something to say about morality, what is good, what is bad, how people should or shouldn't be used, where are those limits and boundaries, and it has to get personal. And if you go personal and writing things that really matter to you, then I think that will always be timeless. And that's what I see with The
And that's
Handmaid's
why,
Tale and all
yeah,
those other ones like 1984. These are timeless because they went and they thought about it very personally.
I would agree with that. Yeah. And they're still being taught in schools.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they bring up conversations that people need to have and people need to talk about. And it's fascinating when they blow up because popular books aren't supposed to be books with messages and allegories.
Yeah, that's true.
Let's see, Margaret. Yeah, you should have a strong point of view. Oh, very much so. Very much so. And then in terms of if you want to make money on your dystopian immediately, instead of dying, having people find it and assign it to English students, and then the people who own your rights make the money. Sorry, Georgia. Then you need to wrap it up in a strong secondary genre that makes people very interested in it. And so like Margaret Atwood wrapped hers up in women's fiction. And she just went there. And women's fiction is already often wrapped up in social concerns or really deep, thoughtful ideas of what it means to be a woman, how women are going through things. So putting that with dystopian, you got it. Or in your case, wrap it in Pride and Prejudice, but you're still going to have things to say about that in it. Or in this case, I had issues to work through. As I tell people, I was going through therapy and
It's
I wrote this
therapy.
book. It's
That
therapy.
was good therapy.
But then I wrapped it in Cinderella, which is such a story
And it
of
made
someone
it
being
better.
oppressed. And it was great. Like, now
I love that. I
um,
love that.
so when we're talking about dystopian, we're talking about those things. And now we're thinking about what makes readers come to it, though. So that's the big thing. It's not just about these key elements. And of course, as authors, we have things to say, we have an impact. Why are readers coming to this? Like, what's going on with that?
Um, yeah, I was thinking about that. And, it's one of those things, it's like, well, what you were saying earlier about how generally, these are not just fluff books, right? I mean, these are going to make you think, right? You got to dig deep. Um, and ultimately, I think as much as we flock to the theater for the popcorn movies, and we will sit and we'll binge watch, however many episodes of whatever, and ultimately, I think we are wired. We desire to think deep, to really consider these questions. And I think that's what I think that's what brings them back over and over and over again, because, there's that what if, like, it's fascinating. What would I do if I were in that situation? What would I do if I were living in this type of society? Or how would I behave if I were in the capital, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or, okay, if I were in District 12, what if I was District 1? What if I was one of the, whatever they're called, the careers?
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it's not only the what if, but I do think there's like a sense inside us that we all truly do have that idea. We want to think, we want to be challenged.
Mm-hmm.
We don't want to just sit in front of the TV and mindlessly flip channels.
Yeah. I would agree. And I think also, I mean, and we could talk a little about the adaptations of the movies, because when I first saw the Hunger Games movies, especially the first one, I felt kind of sick to my stomach, because I'm like, on the one hand, reading it was one thing, and it felt very intellectual, and I was, it was first person POV. That's a very, that's a POV that makes the reader really connect with the person psychologically. But then when I was watching it from like a third person POV, I'm like, I kind of feel like I'm the Capitol watching these kids slaughter each other, and I don't know what to do with this right now. And at the time when I had a blog, I like wrote this blog post going, if we're watching the Hunger Games and we're watching this
Aren't we
happen
the
on a
capital?
screen, are we the Capitol? Like, are
I
we
mean,
doing that? Are we like,
yeah.
watch it? Like, and it was just really interesting to kind of think about. And so I believe you're right that some of the people who come to enjoy dystopian books are there for that philosophy. They're there for their brains. They want to be challenged. They want to think about it. And dystopian books offer that kind of challenge. Again, hopefully written really well. You got to wrap it up in a great storytelling. Dystopian does not leave you many spaces to be sloppy. We'll talk about that in the marketing side, but you've got to nail your craft, your subtext, and your layering. It's got to be really good for dystopian, or people will just ditch it.
Yeah.
You got to have that bring together all of those thoughtful social situations, and you got to create that government in a way that's really going to speak about what you want to talk about, and that takes a lot of extra work. And I think we're also there for that story and that journey. And we're talking about, often dystopians are man versus a greater force. It's the little guy, it's that downtrodden
It's an
thing.
everyman.
It's the everyman. And I mean, that's just so compelling.
It
If you
is.
had a bad day at work and you felt like, the man kept you down, and you're reading this book and you're like, this is cathartic.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm dealing with this right now.
I'm not alone.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And while we're talking about this, guys, shout out for all those who read dystopian. Why do you show up for it? And I'm doing this myself. So see if you can take off those author hats if you write, or if you're like a reviewer, and think about what gets you through a book like this, when you could be picking up an ice cream, popcorn, fluffy book, which I love those too. But
true.
why?
They're great. Yeah, they have
But
their
why
place.
are you doing this?
Yes.
I would
Yeah.
love to hear in that chat box, why do you read dystopian books? Why are they so interesting to you? And it's just that really potent idea. And that I've read recently, especially YA dystopian tends to do really well. And I know when we had the dystopian resurgence it was like 2009, 2011,
Yeah, the
12.
2000s. Yeah.
That's when Hunger Games came out. And then, of course, we
Divergent.
had Divergent. We had the Ugly series, which is Scott Westerfield, which that got adapted into the world's worst Netflix movie. I'm so embarrassed. And the Ugly series was not the most profound series in terms of dystopian. It wasn't the smartest one, but it was pretty good. And they just butchered it on Netflix. Oh, that
Oh,
was
I didn't even bother.
it
I
was
heard.
bad.
Uh,
Oh, they made some poor choices. Actually, in that one, I found that actually the fourth book, which is kind of a an offset, was actually the best one because it talked about the society where social media capital became your currency. So how
oh,
many
yeah.
likes you had translated into your social status.
Okay.
So
Cool.
anyone who thinks that's interesting, check out Extras by Scott Westerfield. You don't have to read the rest of the ugly
Okay.
stuff, but you're gonna read it and go, "Wow, how did this guy know what was going on now?"
Yeah.
you know,
Because
how
it
did
was
he?
written. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's 15 years ago.
Yeah.
Like, what did he do?
Yeah.
And so, let's
Foreshadowing.
see. The violence, the gritty, the stakes, yeah, that really
Hmm.
visceral stuff can really be a thing that draws people to dystopia. And again, that goes to the catharsis,
Hmm.
that sense of almost like release in a way.
Yeah. I feel like, so going back to what you were saying about how, a really good dystopian will also have a strong other element, and then you
Hmm.
bringing up in the 2000s,
Hmm.
2010-ish time frame where it was a lot of YA. I feel like a lot of those also, I feel like their secondary um, genre was romance. Because we
Hmm.
had like the Matched series also,
Oh,
Delirium, we
uh
had
huh.
Wither series.
Hmm.
There was, the Selection series. A lot of them
Oh, the
had to do
selection
with,
blew up. That one, I would almost call the
yeah.
selection. The selection wasn't real dystopian in the same way. I would say that one was more of dystopian light. Like, I don't
Well, I
feel
was gonna
like
say
they went as deep.
I thought it was, but that we were viewing it from like the Capitol. Like we were seeing all the good parts of it.
Okay.
But outside of the
Yeah.
castle walls, I thought it was oppressed. But
Okay.
I don't know. I read it a long time ago. But
Yeah,
I felt like
yeah.
a lot of those stories that came out like revolved around romance. And I was like, I guess maybe that was the
For
thing. That was
teens.
for
Well, I think
teens.
we're also for
Yeah.
teens.
Yeah.
Um, and someone mentioned like the popularity of YA dystopian and why that in particular just ends up being this big thing. I
Hmm.
mean, you're growing up, you're getting disenchanted with the adult world. I taught teens for years. My husband works with teens. I think a lot about teens. Um, you have that fear over having little control over situations, but feeling like you should have
Hmm.
control over them, but you're not
Yeah.
sure where you are with that.
That's a
As a
good one.
teenager, you're learning the status is not quo. Like, I mean, even the simple things is
Not at all.
my grammar students learning that there isn't one set rule for grammar. Like just because I teach them about grammar, there are a bunch of different style guides and they each have their own grammar rules. And they looked at me like I'd lied to them. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, guys. Like,
My whole life has been a lie. Yeah,
yes,
it's
what's going
true.
on?
It's true.
And
We've
so I
taught
think
you all the rules. Now forget the rules, is
now
what it
forget
is.
the rules. It doesn't matter. Welcome to the real world.
Welcome to the real world. That's
And
what it
then
is.
also having that idealism on top of it of saying, but what if I
Mm-hmm.
change it? What if I don't want it to be that way?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, and so I think that definitely can show some of the popularity of this for sort of the YA market. But then, of course, there's the high concept that
Mm-hmm.
really connects with people who want the grit and everything. I think the Hunger Games and Red Rising really bring the grit and
Mm-hmm.
that kind of aggressiveness to it, and that
Mm-hmm.
just that thriller, that thriller
Yeah.
aspect.
Mm-hmm.
And then fairy tale books can be dystopian because of the allegory, and because in fairy tales your main character
Yeah.
is usually treated like horrible.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's true. That's true.
But yeah, Margaret says, I love a good rebellion story because I'm not a rebellious person, so I live vicariously. Yeah,
Yeah,
catharsis. It's a thing, you
it
know?
is. It's a
And and
thing.
and I think sometimes if you're struggling with stuff and you don't have words to put to it, then a good dystopian book that has the character thinking through things can make you go, yeah, what about
Yeah.
that whole thing where you're trying to act good, but you're also doing it for this reasons and you're not sure why you're doing it for those reasons and what is going on here
Yeah.
with this.
Yeah,
Um,
thinking back to what you were saying about why it resonates with YA, with teens
yeah, with
specifically,
teens.
is also because what you were saying about how they feel like things are out of control,
Hmm.
which is true.
Yeah.
And for them to be able to read and listen, me as an adult too, to be able to put yourself in that main character and see, like you said, them stepping into that role where they're basically like the chosen one. They're gonna save the day. They're gonna lead the army or whatever and stand up against the government, and it feels empowering. It
Hmm.
really feels empowering, and it allows young people that are reading it to feel like they're in control because they're like,
Hmm.
yes, I am this character. I could do this. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Or me as an
Yeah.
adult, I could feel that too.
I mean, adults feel that way too, or like people who
Yeah.
are who again are armchair adventurers, who are like, I would never do
Yeah.
this, but
Hmm.
I'm going to watch
Yeah.
someone else go through this.
Yeah.
And that's just very interesting to them. And that's totally legit. I
It
like
is.
dystopian books because the emotions it brings up, yeah, catharsis, the feels.
Yeah.
And depending on what you love a dystopian book for, you're going to get different things out of it. And
Hmm.
you're going to have different favorites because you're going to like a favorite that really brings you those kind of vibes that you want.
Hmm.
So with this one in general, I felt like in the Hunger Games, she really went for a little more intellectual. I mean, there were lots of feels, but Katniss was in denial of them most of the time.
She was. She was. I don't know.
Katniss had the
Katniss.
emotional intelligence of like a very senile tortoise.
Yeah, that's good. That's true. That is true. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And
Um,
then there's Snow and that whole thing with you're just like, dude, you're messed up. No, you could
you're
you
so
could make
messed up.
you could make a really good choice and then we just go right past that choice. We
He
just
has
wave at it.
such issues, man. He got upset about this one girl, and he
He
couldn't
got
get over
control
it.
issues.
And
He got
he's got to spend
control.
the rest of his life like just causing pain to other people all because this one girl jilted him. And I'm like, come on,
Hmm.
buddy, get over it.
I think as it
I
wrecked of his
still
whole
I
life. He get control
touching
issues.
on what is it? Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. I always get it mixed up. Snakes and songbirds. I always get it mixed up.
Songbirds and
Um,
snakes.
uh, I have to say that to this day, I still feel she's pretty genius for the way that she set that up because there were
Oh
times,
no.
and I don't know if it's as much in the movie, but in the book, she really did make me like um, love Snow, and I really thought that he was going to end up being a good
Oh
guy
no.
until the end.
Is it working? Internet, don't fail us now.
Ah, are you still
What do you
there?
mean no internet connection?
You're stuck. You're stuck. Ah, she's gone. Well, I could do the live myself, I guess. What did you guys think of Sunrise on the Reaping? Who was your favorite character? Or have you even read it yet? Because I read it within 4 days. Gabby, why haven't you read it yet? What are you doing? What are you doing with your life if you haven't read it? You are definitely going to read it. So, since I'm alone, I'll just tell you I was so excited about Sunrise on the Reaping and I loved it so much that I was raving about it. And my youngest daughter, Scarlett, said, well, I want to read that. And I said, well, you can't until you know all the other stories. So she went out and she read Ballad and she read the original trilogy within like less than 2 weeks. And she had it all done so that she could go back and read Sunrise. So there you go. I think that was pretty cool. Okay, you haven't read it yet. Um, do you have to read Ballad of Songbirds? Is that what you're asking? First, I would say it would help. I'm trying to think. I mean, definitely there are things that Snow does in Sunrise that makes more sense if you've read Ballad. Um, but I mean, technically, it is pretty much a standalone. Like you could. I think it would make a lot more sense if you read Ballad first. So I'll be honest, when it comes to Sunrise, I've told people I think it may be my favorite of the whole series, but I don't know if it's my favorite because I read the other ones. I have a feeling it is. I have a feeling it's my favorite because of what came before, because of the characters. If you have not read it, you absolutely have to. It's so good. And as Janine mentioned earlier, it will rip your heart out. I mean, unfortunately, going in what the ending's going to be, and it's going to make you very sad. You just have to sort of accept that. I'm sorry. But Suzanne Collins is a master of messages, exactly what Jeannie was talking about earlier with what she has to say. And then the way that she brought everything full circle from the first trilogy and valid. Like she brought so many things full circle, like tied up all these loose ends, answered a lot of questions that we had, and then of course brought a lot of characters back. And I guess maybe that's why it's my favorite of the series. Okay, which Hunger Games book was the saddest? Oh. I'm gonna say Sunrise. I think Sunrise was the saddest. Yeah, it was the saddest. I was considering maybe book one, but because none of us knew when the first book came out, none of us knew what to expect or what was going to happen with it. But ultimately, I do think it's Sunrise. That was the saddest. Margaret, I'm still not over. 1 minute. Oh, Rue. Yeah. So and yeah, and that's the thing is that I think Rue is my favorite character from the first book. um, and possibly of the series until Sunrise, because now I do feel like maybe Ampert is now my favorite one. But there's something about those kids. I mean, I think maybe it's for Rue, it's that loss of innocence. I mean, she basically represents everything that is good and beautiful and innocent in this world, and it's just taken. And uh, it makes me so sad when I think about it. Um, but that she had to die. But ultimately she is what really helped to renew Katniss's motivation ultimately, right? I don't think we would have had a story if there weren't those, I don't want to say sacrifices, but the losses. Do you recommend them? Oh, in order to read. So yeah, ultimately I think Janeen's coming back. Hey, Janeen, we're
Did it
talking about
work?
we've been,
Were you just
yeah,
talking the whole
we've been
time? You're
talking
awesome.
We've been talking about Sunrise on the Reaping the whole time.
You
So
are fantastic. Thank you so much.
the
It
question,
just crashed for
you're
no
welcome.
reason. I'm just like, what?
It's totally fine. So the
This is
question that came up
okay.
was,
Let's go.
what order do we read them in? What order do we read? So this is, you tell me if you agree. My thing is, I think the best order really
Uh huh.
is the order that they released. I think that you get more context to read
Mm-hmm.
ballads if you read the original trilogy. So I think original trilogy ballads then Sunrise. What do you think?
Yeah. Sorry about that, guys. Random.
It's all good.
Anyway. Okay.
Technology.
Technology. All right. I would say that's really like it's back to like a Narnia
I,
thing. It's like,
yeah, I
oh my
know.
goodness. It's like,
Exactly. What order do you read Narnia in?
oh
Exactly. Yeah.
man. See, I think if you try to start it with Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, you're not going to get to the rest of the trilogy and you're not going to appreciate it.
Oh, yeah, that's
Because
true.
he's such, I
Yeah.
mean, as I told some persons, like, and I have a confession here. I loved the movie. I did not make it through the book all the way because I told a
A
friend,
ballad.
I did not, I skimmed through it and I know a lot about it and
Hmm.
those things. But I'm like, I don't want to read Adolf Hitler's first person origin story either.
I
Like
mean,
I don't want to read like the guys who were in charge of apartheid. I don't want to read their first person
I mean,
story. Like
fair. It's fair.
and
It's
because
fair. It's
Suzanne
villain
Collins,
origin
yeah,
story.
and because Suzanne Collins, because she's such a movie person, her books adapt really gorgeous to movies. And in
Hmm.
that
They
they
really
really do.
do.
So that
Yeah.
was one, I confess. I did not make it through the book all the way. I tried. And I'm like, I should just do it. And I'm like, I can't stand this guy. I can't do this to myself. Like he is just so obnoxious and all those things.
I mean, he is Snow.
Oh, Margaret
He is
agrees with that. I
Snow.
feel the same way. That's why I didn't read that one. Yeah, and the movie was so beautiful. Like it's so beautifully done. Um
It was it was it was really well
mhm,
done. I loved
mhm,
it. Yeah. I mean, all of the
mhm.
movies, really, like you said, all of them are just. Um, I think that Suzanne Collins was very lucky. I don't know how much say
I
she
think she
had
actually has
in
a
it.
lot because she's a
Some,
screenwriter. I actually heard that
yeah,
she was involved in the screenwriting
okay.
adaptation.
Well, then that makes sense because she's really lucky that they didn't butcher it.
Yeah, well, I don't
Anyway,
honestly think
yeah.
because she came from screenwriting before she did some of this stuff. I think she was probably sitting there with her agent going, "Buddy, if you don't let me do what I want to do with this, I'm out."
Yeah.
Like I walk. Um,
Yeah.
but I would say, yeah, definitely read the first three because it gives you context and you really do appreciate the other ones. Like with Haymitch, with his book, again, it's so depressing at the end. I think if you want to start something epic, you know,
Yeah. I mean, epic.
epic. Which Hunger Games was the saddest?
Okay. That's what I said too.
I'm gonna say. And by the way, for those of you who are listening to this later, I held up Sunrise on the Reaping. When you're using a poem as your framing device, and it's Nevermore.
Oh, I forgot all about that. I was like, oh my gosh. Yeah,
This takes
that was
a
cool.
guy who is a rascal, good-hearted rascal who wears his heart on his sleeve, and then takes his precious heart and smashes it into a million pieces again and again and
And
again
again and
and
again.
again. And you still keep reading the book. Like,
You still keep reading the book. I have so many feelings.
oh, Margaret's like,
So
I'm
many
not over Rue dying. Rue was painful too. I gotta say. So saddest death of me,
Yeah.
well, like saddest character is this one, but also Rue. I felt Rue. I think because in this one I was expecting her to kill off cute things because she does that. Like, oh look, it's a cute character named Luella. I'm like, you're not gonna
Yeah.
last long.
Yeah.
That's your
Oh, yeah.
bye,
Oh.
you Luella. Like
See you later.
your days are numbered.
know.
But then when they brought in Lulu with like the earpiece, and you're just like, you
I
did
was
fresh
like,
torture.
why? And then made us fall in love with Lulu too. I was all
And you know
like,
she's gonna die.
how could we love her? But we already loved Luella. Why are we falling in love with this other one?
But I have to say, Rue was a very special one. She was the
was so
first one,
special.
and I will not get over that. I know somewhere else out there, I think actually this is my mom who said, I love the books until they killed off Prim. And I'm like, there we go. See, for me, it was I didn't like I thought killing off Finnick just didn't need to happen. I thought that was overkill.
I didn't think it needed to happen.
I
at
thought
all.
I thought killing off Finnick was overkill. Like enough people have died.
It was cruel. Let him have his happily ever after.
Someone.
Come on. Oh. Yeah, I would agree.
So definitely, but this one, when I talked about, and if you saw my promo video for this, where I'm like, oh, there's some cheats. She does some cheats. One of the cheats she does for this one,
Oh, yeah.
this woman takes from Poe. And takes, and
Yeah.
you know, and by the way, getting the rights to that poem, probably not very easy to do, but she's Suzanne Collins at this point, she can do it. And
Oh, yeah.
using that as a framing device, where at the end you just get more and more of Nevermore as he's just losing his all grasp of reality.
I was in awe. I was just like, this is genius.
Yep.
This is so awesome.
So, like,
Yeah.
guys, if you're thinking about that and talking about the marketing side of it, using well-known poetry things as framing devices, easy cheat to get right to your readers' hearts and then squeeze it and stomp them.
And then
Crush them.
rip it to shreds.
Yeah. Margaret also agrees. All the traumatic with Prim and Finnick. Oh,
Prim and Finnick.
just stomp on our hearts, Suzanne Collins. Just do that. You know, here we are.
Rude.
And because of that, when you're talking marketing dystopian books, first of all, understand the majority of them don't make tons of money. It's not like romantasy or like rom-coms or stuff, anything. Romance Landia makes money because it's genre romance and you will get your HEAs eventually. Even in like dark romantasy, it will happen eventually. Hopefully. Yes. So far,
Yeah.
that
should.
that happens.
Yeah.
Dystopian doesn't have that kind of thing. You have to be in a certain mood for it, or you have to basically, I guess, be a philosophical glutton for punishment.
That's true. That's true. And you need to give yourself a palate cleanser after you read one because you don't want to be depressed all the
I
time.
went from this to a P.G. Woodhouse book, which she wrote, it's like all the Jeeves and Wooster stuff. That was my palate cleanser. I went right to like fluffy
Okay.
British comedy for a bit.
Yeah. I think I read a Holly Black like fairy.
Wait,
book.
you went to a Holly
Because
Black book for your palate cleanser? What's wrong with you, woman? Talking about dystopian.
Fairies. Well, fairies. It's fairies.
Still
it was
not
fine.
like, I guess it's a bit
wasn't.
lighter.
Yeah,
I mean,
I can. That's not real to me because they're fairies.
dude,
I can.
we're
separate
talking
it.
about
It's
gutting
not
people
real.
with messed up situations. Her Curse Breaker series, like, ouch, that woman. Anyway,
Yeah.
so with all that being said, not only is it not an easy, like, guaranteed moneymaker if you're going for that, but also you really have to know your stuff. You have to work
Yeah.
harder at it.
Honestly, I think because I write a bunch of different
Yeah.
genres, and I think dystopian's the hardest of them. I mean, I don't. It's hard because I mean, all of them have an aspect like that you need to really master, and you know what I mean, or always be working at. But dystopian, it's harder to write.
And and to do
Yeah.
it well, it's not just a matter of having good writing craft and having a good editor, but you have to really have those layers and that subtext to really make it work. And even like the fluffier dystopian, so like things like Matched,
Yeah.
where it's fluffier,
Yeah. It was a little
but you
fluffier, yeah,
still have to know
because
your
it's fluff.
layers and stuff and how to like weave things together. And because a lot of it is allegorical, if you want to make allegory something people actually want to read and don't feel preached at, you have to work harder at it. Versus just
It's true.
not trying to do an allegory and then you're having an easier time with it. You don't have to worry about it as much.
There you go.
But you have to keep making sure you're adding in that secondary genre that keeps people in the game when that core message just gets brutal. And so that's where secondary genre, like I think someone was pointing out, they like action, adventure, those are secondary genres. Pride and Prejudice, that gives you an anchor. So if things get bad, there's also, but it's Pride and Prejudice and it's going to have a good ending. So we're going to be okay here. We're going to be okay.
Yeah, that's right. They're gonna fall in love.
It's going to happen. And that's why I think tossing romance into dystopian sometimes, as long as you don't kill off the love interest. I was really
Yeah.
slightly hoping that she would at least escape because of what they did for Lucy Gray. I'm like, maybe.
Yeah.
And then when she picked up those stupid gumdrops, I'm like, no.
I
No,
was
woman.
like, well, yeah,
I think that was the only one
yeah.
where I slightly went, because at this point he knew that Snow was out to get him. And so she literally
I
had to
know.
fling her across the meadow where he couldn't see her. Because if he did, if she was anywhere closer, he'd be like, you drop that right now. He'd be like,
Yeah.
this
Yeah,
guy's
yeah,
out to get me. Like, just,
And I think that's maybe the only reason that the way she died worked, because it was planted at the very, very beginning. These were the candies that he bought for her, and so I still agree with you. I feel like, hey, Mitch, how could you possibly have let your guard down? Like, but I guess maybe the
arson!
elation of
Arson
seeing
happened!
her. I know the elation of seeing her and everything. I guess, but I don't think there could have been any other way that Snow could have gotten to her, because I think Hamish would have been like all over, like
Yeah.
protecting her, like
He'd be like,
"Arr."
we're
And
running
that
right
was
now for the hills. We're just going.
we're running, like I'm gonna keep you safe, and I think that was the only way that Snow could have gotten her, and he did.
Yeah, and the thing
Cursed
is, on the one
Snow.
hand, I was kind of hoping, I'm like, no, her name is Lenore. She was doomed from the get
Yeah,
go.
yeah,
It's
there we
like,
go. Yeah.
her name's Lenore. Dang it. She was just doomed from the get go. I should have known that. I
Yeah.
disgraced my own English literature knowledge. There we go. But,
It's okay. It's fine. It's fine.
but because of that, you really, like, whenever it becomes too much, then she brings in that clever strategy of maybe we're going to fight the games. Or she makes the game so ridiculously evilly shiny. Or she brings in that, like, action that keeps you going with it. And that's really important for dystopian, is having those other elements. Otherwise, you're writing pure dystopian, and sometimes that's just hard to get through after a while. You have to have that strong secondary genre that tells people, keep reading. It's worth it.
Yeah.
I know your soul's getting
Keep going.
crushed, but also,
Don't give up.
yes.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I will admit, when I picked it up, I was wondering how on earth is she going to end this in any sort of like with any thread of hope? Because there has to be a little, even if it's tiny, a
I
thread
don't
of
think
hope,
she did it. That's
or
the
else
other
the reader.
thing. I don't think she did
I
it very
mean,
much.
she did it the only because ultimately choosing Haymitch, like we already knew what he was 25 years in the future. Like
Hot mess.
there
Yep.
was no hope for him, and so the only way she could have done it, which she did, was to write that kind of like epilogue or whatever, like where we kind of jump into the future where the hope is basically his relationship with Katniss, right, and his healing, I guess. That's that was all she could do because there was no hope for him. I'm
She
sorry.
kind of wrote herself into a corner with that a bit. And I wonder if
She did.
that was the one thing that, now, if you read the acknowledgments, in the acknowledgments, it says that it has like 3 or 4 paragraphs devoted to one of her dear friends who died when she was finishing the book. And I kind of wonder if she was just in her feelings.
I don't know that I don't know that I actually read that.
I like to read it when
probably
I'm
should.
thinking about why an author's doing something, because I do believe in like, authorial intent and kind of figuring, okay, why did they go in this direction? Well, first of all, she had to. Like maybe if she wasn't so locked in, she would have given him more hope, but she really you already know at the end of Mockingjay that Peeta and Katniss are constantly having to check in on him because he'll still drink himself. So unfortunately, she couldn't even let him kick the habit very much because she already wrote that in there. But by the way, for those of you who are indies, one of the beautiful things you get to do is if you really lock yourself in, you can rewrite your book. She can't do that.
Yeah, that's true.
But also, like, I wonder if she was just kind of in a place where she just needed to vibe something.
I guess. I mean, she made it work.
It did.
I mean,
No, it worked.
It's a great book. She
As
made
I tell
it work,
people,
but
I have things I liked greater and less, but I'm keeping this. Like, I'm not giving this away.
yes, I love it. It's up
It
there.
is. And Margaret's like, I hate to go, but I'll catch the replay. I learned
I
so
know.
much.
I know. It's
okay.
okay.
We're gonna
go
be
big.
wrapping this up now too. Do you have any advice or guidance? Like, what is one tip that you would give anyone who's trying to tackle dystopian writing?
So honestly, it sounds so cliche, but it's so true. Um, you do need to consume it. Like I know there's that fear for writers. They're like, "Oh, I can't read too much of this because I don't want to start writing." You're not going to start writing like another author. You're not going to, and there's nothing new under the sun, so you're not even necessarily going to be like stealing other people's ideas. Just but it really will help your mindset if you're a fan of it and you again probably don't read it back to back too much so you're not depressed all the time. Okay, but consume what you can. I mean, read and see what different authors have done. Like, what direction have they gone in? Like the big ones, the ones that are well done. I'm not trying to down like lesser known series or anything like that, but there's a reason why the big ones are so big. The ones that are taught in school. There's a reason, right? So yeah, I like to do that. I like to pay attention to a book, as you said at the very beginning, not just as a reader, but as a writer. I like to pay attention and kind of look, okay, what beats did they hit? What did they do with the characters, character arc here, with the relationships, everything. I like to kind of pay attention to that, and I'll make notes to myself. And I mean, obviously, you're not copying someone's work. I'm talking about the writing craft. If you just watch what other authors have done and in the books, and uh, yeah, that's because otherwise, I don't really know that there is necessarily like one way to be able to write the dystopian, because like you just said, Janine, like um, there's a message to be said by the author, but it's not all the same message,
Yeah.
right? I mean, it's all going to be something different. So that's going to be your unique element within your story. And so there's not necessarily one way to do it other than what you were saying earlier, is if you do want to make it true dystopian, there's going to be those main
Yeah.
elements that you hit with an oppressive government, and there's going to be some sort of control element, fear, etc. And I would absolutely shoot for um, trying to figure out what other genre you can go ahead and mix it with and mash it up with, so that it can make it just a lot more marketable and interesting to a reader overall. So
I'd absolutely agree with that. And I think for me, I mean, you just brought a lot of great stuff to the table there with that.
oh,
But
sorry.
I would say know why you're doing it
Yeah,
and really own that, because it's a lot of work.
it's really good.
And you're going to, at times, you're going to go, why am I doing this to myself? You really have to have a deep sense of what you're having to say, and let yourself take time with it and say what you need to say with that. If it's a shorter book, it's probably going to be a shorter book that you've had to work over and over and over again. And I think anytime we're dealing with a bigger concept in sci-fi or fantasy, like, you're going to have to work it over more because you're trying to wrestle with it yourself. But give yourself time to marinate with it. And I was reading one of these interviews with Suzanne Collins, and again, she's really going for the philosophy. In case you didn't figure it out, her books do a lot with philosophy, and she just uses the characters to really showcase that philosophy in really creative ways. But she knows that her philosophy and her philosophers and her worldviews that she's dealing with, she's got it down.
She does. She knows her stuff.
So whatever you're trying to work with, whether you're trying to say things that are a bit more emotional, like if you're going to include a romantic element, it's going to be more emotional. Or if you're going to be writing kind of a more sadder, thoughtful story, you're going to have more emotions. But whether you're doing that or you're doing something more intellectual, let yourself sit with it and marinate it and really figure out why you're doing it. And that's going to really help you drive forward with that. And then be super confident with your secondary genre, because your secondary genre is what's going to sell your book. Like this sells because it is a clean fairy tale. And then they get in the door and they go, oh.
That's exactly.
And this one I mean, it's openly dystopian, but it's selling because it's thrilling and pulse pounding and adventurous. And can I survive? Even though when it says, you know, when you're set up to lose everything you love, what is you'll have to fight for? This one's pretty clear. Bad things. But
bad things.
But you're showing up for the intrigue and the excitement and all of that. And then quote the raven nevermore.
Yeah.
All right, Laura. So it's been great having you here. Where can people find you online and learn more about all your books?
So my website is my full name, Laura L. Zimmerman. .org specifically. Got to be .org. LauraLZimmerman.org. I'm pretty active on Instagram, which is Laura L. Zim Author. If you type my name in, it should pop up. And I've also got a Facebook page. I'm on Pinterest, Goodreads. And if you specifically go to Instagram and go to my bio, you actually can click on the link to find more out about me and sign up for my newsletter. So, and that goes out once a month. And this month I literally just sent it out, and I'm doing a giveaway. So I like to do giveaways and fun things like that. And I don't just talk about books. I share recipes and fun stuff like that. So definitely sign up for my newsletter, because I think that's usually where I share all like bookish information, writing information first.
Awesome.
Before I put it anywhere else.
Well,
so
thank you again for making time for this, because I know I kind of said, hey,
yes, thank
show
you.
up, and you did in a fantastic way. Yes. And it's been great having you here. And for all,
thank you so much for having me. It was super fun.
We're definitely going to have to do this again when your book comes out and talk about that more.
Sounds good.
All right.
Yes, sounds great.
For all listening out there and watching, go forth and be awesome.